Are you signed up to racing Ironman 70.3 Elsinore this year? If so, this is the video for you because in it, I'm going to talk to a guest athlete who has raced it last year and got loads of hints and tips to tell you exactly how to get the absolute best out of this fantastic course in Denmark. So, just a quick introduction. My name is Coach Steve or Steven Moody. I'm a YouTuber who does regular race reviews, and I do that to give you the best insight before you actually start off your race this season. And I do this by either interviewing coaches, race announcers, or in this case, a special guest athlete who raced last year. I'm delighted to have Ian Wiley with me, who is a one-time actually a multiple Olympian, not in triathlon. He's a much more he's a better kayaker than he is a triathlete, or I hold that back. He's actually a superb triathlete, and he'll tell us that. So, quick introduction. Ian, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for having me along. Looking forward to it.
You're a relatively new triathlete in Rust, and you took on Elsinore. Was this your first 70.3 you took on?
Yeah, it was actually 2022 Elsinore I did. Not yet, but
Fantastic.
yeah,
And
but that was my first 70.3 and kind of got into triathlon, I think about 18 months before that or so. So but yeah, it's a great event, great venue, and
fantastic. We're
amazing
very
support.
interested to hear your first-hand experiences and learning. We'll talk everybody through it. So, okay. So we'll start off on at the swim start. It looks like it's a fairly complex turning course. How did you find this as a first timer? Was this an easy course to
Yeah, I
navigate?
mean, I suppose if you want to call it a technical swim course, you can because there's lots and lots of turns. Um, I think one of the biggest things that people will notice when they arrive at the swim course, they may get a little bit of a shock because the swim course venue, that bay is absolutely full of jellyfish. But they are the type of jellyfish that do not sting. So I can remember me and the group that we were with when we arrived and saw all these jellyfish, and we were like, oh my word, like what this is, they cannot have a swim in there. But but anyway, these are jellyfish that don't swim sting, so it's no issue whatsoever, and they are packed. It's like jellyfish soup. But by the time people start in the race and you get lots of swimmers that are going, there's kind of channels that are cut. So you may or may not touch off one. But if you do, it's nothing to be concerned about at all because they don't sting you whatsoever.
Friendly jellyfish. I know jellyfish is the
Anyway,
triathlete's worst nightmare, but again, a friendly jellyfish, so I think it's okay.
yeah.
In terms of the actual swim itself, was it I know it's in a bay. Was it a choppy swim? Was the water
No,
temperature
no,
good? Or
flat cam. Salt water, some plenty of buoyancy, flat cam. It's a relatively nice place to swim. Um, but it's quite technical. There's lots of turns, so you're sighting a lot just to see where you are and where you're at. So
and was
yeah,
the it was a wetsuit legal swim for yourselves?
yeah, it's Denmark, so I don't think it's ever gets to the stage where it would not be a wetsuit swim.
Fantastic. You said it was a technical swim. So what was your biggest takeaway from the swimming kind of course with so many twists and turns and all the rest? Did you get a chance for a practice swim the day before and figured out
No,
sighting points or
I didn't do that actually. Um, but your ability to sight is really important on a course like this because there's so many turns. So don't rely on staying on the person in front of you. If you're on somebody's feet, and following them, just make sure you're sighting and keeping an eye on those boys. Um, um, but because there's so many turns, the boys are quite easy to spot because they're relatively close to each other. So it's not a very difficult course to stay online, but you just need to be ensure that you're sighting quite regularly.
cool. And when you the entry point, is that off a pontoon or is that a sand or how are you getting into the water?
Yeah, you're pretty much jumping or diving off a pontoon. The pontoon wasn't high. There was the possibility to have a little warm up swim right up until you're starting. Really, they had this kind of little sort of pooled off area just beside the swim pontoon. It's pretty small. It was like a kind of a 20 meter by 20 meter by 20 meter kind of square area. But if you wanted to jump in and kind of do a little little warm up that was possible right before you start the race.
Absolutely. I'd always recommend my athletes do that as well, just even to get the water temperature and away from the shock. The swim exit, is that out onto a pontoon as well, or are there people helping you out? How are you getting out of the water?
It was a pretty easy swim exit. It was a kind of ramped up onto a pontoon, but there was no you didn't have to kind of drag yourself out or anything. It was pretty simple exit.
Okay, cool. All right. So aside from this initial shock of the our friendly jellyfish, and the technical course, and again, so sighting's key, as you said, and also drafting as well. What we'd recommend as well, once you get in and get close on someone's feet as well, let them even closer because of the jellyfish. Let them
Huh.
clear the path and also break the surface resistance and make it easy for yourself. Any other hints, last minute hints or tips on this swim course, Ian?
No, no, I think just be prepared to be a little bit shocked when you see those jellyfish because it is a shock. You've never seen anything like it, but don't be worried because they do not sting whatsoever.
Cool. It's actually similar to Ironman Maryland. They do have a lot of, but they have these bubble jellyfish. I do hope
Yeah.
people are watching the rest of the videos. The minute they hear jellyfish, they normally run away. But
Uh,
no, it's as I said, but it always sells out as well, Elsinore as well, because it
yeah,
is a
yeah,
quite a fast little course as well. So despite the fact that you've got the deal with some jellyfish, it's worth it.
yeah.
Okay, so next up we have in terms of the actual cutoff time. It's a standard cutoff time for a 70.3 swim. So from the minute you get into the water from you when you enter the pontoon and cross the mat, you've got 70 minutes to get it done. We'll talk a little bit of actually how you get into the water. Because as Ian correctly said, it's a pontoon swim. But if you're new to Ironman swimming and 70.3 swimming, Ironman uses a rolling start or a seated start, where what they'll do is you'll turn up and on the day you'll have different corrals, which will be under 30 minutes, on 35 minutes, 40 minutes, etc. And you put yourself into the corral and your expected swim time. Why does this the Ironman do this? Because then they can let all the faster swimmers in first and they'll control it like so. You'll come up to four or so gates. There'll be nice volunteers holding their arm out. Every kind of 5 seconds, a beep will go off and they'll let four swimmers in. These are our four swimmers swimming away and it controls it in. What corral did you put yourself into, Ian? And any tips for people if they're nervous swimmers and how to get into the water?
Yeah, I mean Ironman signposted pretty well in terms of where timings and yeah, it's advisable to kind of put yourself in that group at a pace that you're comfortable swimming in. But it's well signposted in terms of timing, so it's very easy to kind of get yourself into a group that will be swimming sort of at your pace.
Yeah. And that's a really good benefit of actually a lot of people make the mistake of actually going in too early because they think they're going to short on cutoffs. If you do that, that's a massive mistake because two things will happen. One, you'll get swam over by the stronger swimmers because they know you're not meant to be there and they'll be unapologetic about it. But the
Yeah.
point that Ian's has made, if you're in a group where you're swimming 2 minutes per 100 and you put yourself in the 35 to 40 minute corral, you will be put into a group where you can actually roughly swim around the same level and actually draft. And when we talk about drafting, which is legal in the swim leg, it's where you're swimming on someone's hip or on their feet, and it means that it breaks up their breaks the surface tension, and you can end up working together and actually saving some energy as a group, which is absolutely key for the a 70.3. So, Ian, what was your swim time in Elsinore?
I think it was around 37, 38 minutes. I'm a relatively pretty average swimmer. Um, yeah, I put myself in around that group, swim time group. But yeah, to your point, you don't want to be going off with the 30-minute swimmers because you'll just get swam over, which can be a pretty uncomfortable experience.
Yeah, and it is not the way to start the day. Okay, so
No.
that's how Ironman will start, and that's new. Is again, and the key thing point you should get from myself and Ian's advice: seed yourself honestly, seed yourself correctly. It'll set you up for a much better day. The other thing we're going to talk about here now is another thing that's very Ironman specific. If you've done a couple of local distance triathlons, you haven't done any branded Ironman events, they operate what's called a clean transition system, where you're not allowed to, like if you go to your local triathlon, you put your runners, your wetsuit, and your helmet, everything, and you just grab some space beside your bike. Because there's around 2,500 people doing that, Ironman can't afford to have that real estate taken up. So they have a bag system where you have a blue bag and a red bag, where you actually put all your T1, as in from your swim to bike stuff, and your T2, your bike to run. in different color bags. Um, and so when you exit the water, you will come out, and we'll show the transition flow in a second, where you actually have to run up and grab your blue bag, which in your blue bag, you have your bike helmet, your bike shoes, anything else you want to wear on the bike, and you'll take your wetsuit off and you'll chuck that into that bag, and then you'll was it either hang it up again or there's volunteers. I'm not sure. Were there volunteers taking the blue bags off you, or did you have to rehang your bag in
No,
Denmark?
so Ironman have a general, in my experience, they always have a racking system. So your number, you'll hang your bag on your number. So you run, you'll come out of the swim exit. It was about a 200-meter run, 250-meter run
Yeah,
into the bag collection area. From when you come out of the water, about a 250-meter run into the area where you collect your blue bag, and that will be hung on your number. So it's very easy to find because you'll have hung it there earlier or the day before, and checked it that morning as a competitor. Run in, grab your helmet, your nutrition out of the bag, wetsuit off. That goes back into the bag, hang it back up. It's very simple. It's a great system that Ironman run.
and the run up here, I'm actually now showing the transition map. Is that what's on that? Is that on decent surface? Is it just was it tarmac or concrete, or is it
It
carpeted?
was, I think it might have even been sort of red carpet all the way in, or
Yeah,
blue carpet or whatever. It was from my memory, I think that it may have been carpeted all the way from the swim exit into T1.
lovely.
Uh, Not if there was, there may have been some tarmac on that. I can't fully remember, but but it was flat. It was a flat run and smooth run all the way into T2 into T1.
Cool, excellent. And as we're talking about T1 and now at the moment, for our American friends who watch these, and thank you very much for coming over to Europe, we don't do wetsuit strippers or sorry, peelers. As you guys come in, like a lot of the Americans that do, like they have the actual volunteers designated to help you off. So you have to take your wetsuit off yourself and put that into the blue bag. So a good tip here is when you're running up here, start taking it off, start peeling it down because you've got 250 meters to cover. You might as well start using it productively, and also gives you a chance to start thinking after you've been kind of swimming horizontal for the last while. And then, as Ian correctly said, you come in here. This is where your bag, because you're transitioning from your swim to bike, it's the blue bag, and that's where you take your helmet on, your bike shoes, etc. And then you run out to your transition to the bike racks. These are all numbered beforehand, so tip for my guys is make sure you walk the transition the day before. You have to check in your bike and your bags the day before. There'll be a set time, but walk it. So make sure because everything looks very different when you had a big surge of adrenaline. You just finished a swim on a sea of jellyfish. So your adrenaline's up, and to make sure you walk, find nice stationary big landmarks. There's no point in going. I'm beside this big green bike here, because you might come along and find that guy's a stronger swimmer than you, and you're looking for a green bike that's no longer there. So if it's in line with a portaloo, in line with a tree or whatever. Actually, the surface of the transition area, Ian, is that in a car park? It's on grass. What is it? Or
Yeah, but that I think it was like a tarmac area, sort of pedestrian tarmac area. Um, yeah, it was flat.
cool. All right, and then you'll grab your bike, but you can only touch your bike by the way when your helmet's on, or else you'll end up having a penalty. And then you'll run out, and there's a bike out area. There will be a mount line where you have to run with your bike across the mount line before you can get on it. Quick tip here. Everybody gets over the line and suddenly tries to hop on the bike. So you have 10, 20 people trying to do it. Take another 5 meters and get yourself into space because then you have full range to throw your leg over the bike and then off you go. What was your biggest learning in your first 70.3 transition, Ian? What did you kind of go, oh, I did that well, or oh, I did that badly?
So I think it's really important to kind of walk the transition area, understand, where you're going from when you change out of your wetsuit and grab your bike gear out of that bag, and then from when you hang that bag back up and start running towards your bike, just have walk it a few times the day before, when after you've racked your bike, um just understand from when you're running to get your bike where you're going, know exactly where your bike is, and know exactly where you're going from when you collect the bike, where you're going to the bike exit. Just go through
Perfect.
that in your mind a couple of times. So once you've kind of ran it through your mind a few times, it's pretty easy to do on race day. You just know exactly where you're going.
Yeah. And another tip I'll give her as well, which adds to that, as in like I always tell my guys, you've got most people have camera phones at this stage. If you sort of go take a picture of of where your bike is, take a picture of the landmark because when you're sitting there, you probably won't sleep the night before. You can go through. Okay, yes, I'm running. Yeah, oh, that's that tree, and that's what my bag looks like. And also when you're packing your transition bag, and you have this mad moment, did I put my whatever my Vaseline in my run bag? And you go, if you've put everything beside your bag and taken a picture of it rather than lose whatever chance of getting to sleep, you can look at your picture, go, oh no, it is there, or it's not. Make sure I bring it with you because, as you correctly said, Ian, you'll have access to the bags in the morning, and then you can check things in. Another
Yeah. So
top tip is
I generally like kind of have a little list of what of prepared on what I want to, what needs to go into into the blue bag and the red bag, and just have it ready the day before. Double check it then again on race mornings so that you've got everything ready to go.
no,
Um,
absolutely. It's a great tip, and also that's something that in one of those videos below, actually, I have where I actually show people what to put in the bags as well. So, okay, we've done our transition, and I hope you're finding this useful again. And it's great talking to Ian, as I said, as a very strong newbie, if I'll be honest, and he's only got better. So, and it's great to hear from his experience. So, if you're enjoying it, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video. It helps my notions as a YouTube influencer, and it also helps your fellow athletes see more of the videos. So, we are out on the bike course. It is a two loop course now. Ian, I believe it was the one loop when you did it, but what can you tell us a bit about the road surfaces people can expect to find in Denmark? Are they good?
yeah, I mean it was good road service for most of the course. That run down along the coast is fast, flat, great road service. Um, uh, and then there's a slight that first turn, yeah. So that looks all the same from when I was there. There's just a slight little incline from when you turn off the coast. But the course is fast, relatively flat. There's no big climbs. It's a little bit lumpy. Um, but yeah, what I would describe as a a pretty fast bike course.
Was wind much of an issue as well? Like, or was it?
No. The day we raced, the day I raced, it got up to 29 degrees on the run. So the Danes were like commenting when we were in Elsinore, like the weather is never this hot. So we had we had exceptional weather when we were there, um, which was pretty unusual apparently to be that hot at that part of the world at that time of the year. So
Maybe just bring the sunshine because I know it was pretty hot in Marbella for you as well recently. Um, the also then just in terms of bike equipment choice, TT course or road bike
oh
or
yes, 100%. 100%. If you have a TT bike, yes. Yeah. It would of course, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you have a TT bike, it's a no-brainer. You're not going to use a road bike in that course.
cool. Actually, as you can see, yeah, there's not an awful lot of big long hills, and you said more lumpy than anything else. So the road surface is good. It's flat and fast. Well, rolly, but nothing you're going to have to overly get out of the saddle for. Closed roads as well, I presume,
Closed
or
roads, yeah. Closed roads all the way. It looks like there's a few turns on the course, so
yeah.
be cognizant of that. You're gonna have to slow up on some of those turns, so you don't you're going to be carrying some speed, so just be aware of where some of those big turns are, so you're going to have to slow up if you get the opportunity. On the If you traveled out on the Thursday, for example, you may want to try to ride the bike course on the Friday. Absolutely, if you can do that, or even get to ride half of it, it's highly recommended. You're just that little bit more familiar. You know what's coming up. Um, but so yeah, if you can get the opportunity to ride the bike course in advance of the race, absolutely do it.
Oh, absolutely. And again, as I said, there's now a kind of two loop course. As I said, we all know, but again, and people, this panics people because they sort of go, "Oh no, what if I make the wrong turn?" It is that's where your turn is off your second loop. So after you've done one loop, two loop, and at this is where you head back. You mentioned that it gets fairly fast on the way back into transit into T2, or
Yeah,
sorry,
that stretch along the coast is fast, but see that turn when you're coming back in, and that turn
yeah,
left, which is going to bring you back down towards T2. You're coming in at speed because there's a bit of a little bit of a hill coming down. So you're coming off to the dismount. You're coming into the dismount line. You can be coming in there pretty quick. It actually caught me out. I I just barely went over the dismount line. I was just a little bit late, so I caught myself a little 10-second hold penalty, which wasn't much, but you're coming in there at a lot of speed. So just check if you get the opportunity to just check where the dismount line is, so you know exactly where it is. Um, if you can view that and get a look at that before you start the race, great, because it comes out, you can be carrying quite a bit of speed coming up to it, so it can catch you out if you're not aware of where it is.
yeah, no, absolutely. Again, that's part of our walking the course, and again, looking at the dismount line, seeing where it is, and all the rest. I'll have to point out that it's quite interesting. I've been racing 70.3s and I've done around 12 of them. I've never picked up a penalty or a card line. You got it in your first one, like
I got it on my first one.
is it that's that's a record. That's pretty impressive.
I
Um,
remember arguing with the judge at the time because I was like, I'm not sure. That was borderline. They were laughing, hold them, so they weren't, but they were sticking to their guns. But it was only 10 seconds, so it wasn't much.
Yeah. Well, you probably spent most of the 10 seconds arguing the point anyhow. But again, I think there's also a lesson as well. When you get a card or whatever, and you never change a technical official's mind.
Oh
All
yeah,
you might
no.
do is get a chance of upgrading it if you think they're being abusive. But I'd say you were just, and again, the heat of the moment. Um, Another thing on this course as well, it's a 2 lap, and if it's flat and fast, a lot of people kind of neglecting their nutrition. They go, "Wow, look at my average speed. I'm just nailing it." That's when these are the courses you really need to dial in nutrition and talk about how to handle that later on. And especially in the second loop, because you're not only fueling for the bike, you're fueling for the run. So make sure, even though if you're on for a PB bike split for 90K, you are on top of your nutrition, on top of your hydration. And as Ian said, when it's hot, you've got to keep on top of that as well. Any last minute tips on the bike course, Ian?
No, it's yeah, it's not super taxing. There's no big climbs. It'll be taxing obviously depending on how hard you're riding the bike, but yeah, there's no big climbs. It's relatively flat, but a little bit lumpy in areas.
Just avoid the yellow cards, isn't it? I think that's your
Avoid
last tip.
avoid the avoid the get off your bike. Get off your bike in time.
Before the dismount line. Okay. And in terms of what you have, in terms of time wise to get this, again, in terms of your swim, T1 time and your bike time, you've got 5 hours and 30 to do it. As Ian said, it seems like if you pace it well, you fuel well, that shouldn't be a problem. Okay. So a little bit, we've mentioned nutrition and hydration. And again, this is something that if you are new to Ironman, again, they have aid stations on the course. And this is how they typically work. You have a start of the aid station, you'll have an area where it indicates you can start littering or discarding your bottles, etc., and they have an end of it. This is the only place in Denmark you can be able to chuck your water bottles or your gel wrappers, etc. Because if you don't and you start chucking in the beautiful Danish countryside and you're seen by Marshall, you will rightly get a red card because you're being a dick. We actually, you have to remember, we're guests in these people country. We have to respect it by only discarding bottles, gels, etc., and all the rest in this at the aid stations. It means our man can clean up and as if they were never there. The other way you'll see you have water, you have electrolytes, and typically in European races, it's going to be a precision hydration. No longer it used to be Gatorade, but now this since last year, it's precision hydration. Morton gels are still there, fruits are still there. Again, and if you miss the bottles, which I'll talk about in a minute, you have a second chance before the end of it. After that, you keep your rubbish on you. What sort of fruits were at the aid station for you, Ian? Do you remember what you were picking up, or?
Yeah, I was just picking up fluids because I carried my own nutrition on the bike, but I just used the aid stations for hydration. I was so gathering some. Yeah.
Cool. Typically, they're normally bananas, but I always love that. I love asking people this question because you hear like in certain races in Sweden they had gherkins and stuff like that, and I was going like
Oh,
that.
uh,
But I take them straight out of my burger. I mean, like that's the bad thing. I can't imagine in an Ironman. Um, but how to actually handle an aid station in itself is a skill, and it's something that you should be aware of. And there's sort of things, do's and don'ts. You don't suddenly veer in. You have to make eye contact with the volunteers you're taking the bottle. Myself and Ian could talk about it until cows come home, but we put it together in a short little video if you want to watch out how to learn how an aid station works, how to practice for it. And it's key because this is one of the risky spots of the race because there's bottles moving, lots of moving parts, people moving in, there's volunteers, etc. Watch that video. It'll save you any sort of potential pitfalls on the day.
Yeah,
Okay,
always good if you're coming. Always good if you're coming in to try and grab one of the marshal's attention. You know, if you eyeball them, let them know that you're coming in. You want to grab a bottle. Yeah, it certainly helps.
no, absolutely, because otherwise, and in the video I have, there's actually one of the pros is in a T100, and you could see he was just was not slowing down enough, not making that contact, and like he knocked four bottles out of the hand in a row. And like if a pro can do it, as I said, there's a lot of things you can actually improve on.
Well,
Um,
the pros are going at a hell of a speed as well. So
but even that, like
it's
that's, but
more
even like
difficult.
that's a lesson itself. Yes, you could be coming in there 30k an hour, 35. It's useless if you're going to go out of there without any water to take away, and then especially in a hot day, you're much better off slowing it real down to 20k an hour, making that eye contact, shouting, "I need water, I need water." The volunteers will put out, just making sure you grab it, secure it, and get out safely.
Yeah.
Um, right. So we're back in T2. It's a Is it a single transition? Ian.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
T1, T2 in the same area. Yeah.
Fantastic. And this is again where we're talking about that's the video I referred to in terms of what goes into your red bag because you're now coming in and you're going bike to run. Bike to run equals red. In there, this video will show you what you need to pack in there.
So you're coming back into T2 at a pretty much the exact same area as you exit as you would have exited
Mm-hmm.
um uh, uh T1. So yeah, pretty much the same area. Drop your bike obviously on where you're on your designated number area, and then it's a run back into to collect your your red bag.
Yeah. What was your biggest tip for T2 for as a newbie or biggest learning?
Again, it's just being aware of where you're going. So know when you're coming when you once you've got off your bike and you're running into T2, just know exactly where your bike, where your rack your bike has to be racked. So know where your number is. So you're not looking around and just have that clear in your mind. So you know exactly where you're going when you get off the bike. Run straight to your area, drop your bike, then run down to the bag area.
Yeah, no, agreed. And again, what's one of my catchphrases I said, nothing good happens in T2. As in, I would actually advise people taking a little bit slower in T1 because if you go too fast to T1, you might not bring your nutrition. You might actually, was it your helmet might be fastened and you get a penalty, etc. T2, all you're doing is dropping the bike. All you're doing is getting your runners on and then moving it. But if you sit down and start rubbing the legs, and go, oh God, I have a half marathon coming up things it mentally it becomes quite daunting. So I get my guys to have, for example, if they've got a baseball cap they're going to wear and sunglasses, and I have that all wrapped up with a gel in it. Just get your runners on, start moving towards the run out, which is here, and start putting the hat on as you're running or fast jogging, etc. Because you're moving the legs, you're getting rid of the jelly legs, and then suddenly you got your shades on, you've got a gel in you, you got a hat on, or rest, and you're down here, and you're kind of like, oh, 500 meters in. Okay, this is all right. And I'm only like whatever, another a K away from an aid station. So
Yeah, yeah.
smooth control, but don't fanny around. Ooh, I wonder if that word will translate.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
the only thing, all you're dumping in the bag is your helmet, essentially. You know, you're probably going to leave your cycling shoes on the bike, um, and then it's just a matter of just kind of grabbing your hat, sunglasses, whatever nutrition you have, sticking your runners on, and go.
yeah, absolutely. Other thing I will say as well, I tend to get people get dry socks in T1 and T2 because just again, wet socks from the bike you can end up with blisters. That's the only other thing I would say is worth investing time in. But otherwise, you said grab
Yeah,
and go. Okay, doke. The run course. This looks, as I said, it seems to be again they seem to like doing corners in Denmark. It's quite similar to the swim,
yeah.
isn't it?
It's a pretty fun run because you're running through the town of Elsinore and there's lots of people out having, supporting the race. The support on the run course is pretty impressive. It's lots of people around. There's lots of Danes that drinking beer and cheering you on, and it's flat. Of course, it's a flat run course. There are a few little cobbled areas, but generally it's kind of a tarmac surface. Apart from when you're running around the castle, it's a little bit of a gravel surface, but flat, good grip. Um, yeah, it's a fast run course, with incredible support pretty much all around it because you're doing like 3.5 loops. You're not running, out into the countryside. You're pretty much in the town of Elsinore for all the run. Tons of support, lots of aid stations, lots of areas to pick up nutrition and fluid. But yeah, my abiding memory of it is just incredible support.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, agreed. And also with the three loop course, as I said, there tends to be lots of runners as well. And again, I always say, like, encourage your other runners as well, even if you're chasing them, etc. You get a feel good
Yeah, I
factor
mean,
from it.
I think that's one of the most impressive things about competing in an Ironman event is the camaraderie amongst all the athletes because you've got a lot of newbies, first timers, people that have been racing quite a lot, but irrespective of who you are, everybody's very supportive of each other. So of course you're going to be coming across people that are maybe struggling on the second half of the run, but you're always getting a pat on the back. Come on, and it's incredible camaraderie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what I also like about a 3.5 loop course isn't a lot of people will go end up setting a PB for the 10K and the first lap and all the rest, and it makes a mess of their run. As in, so like for the three lap system, I would advise people ease into it for the first, was it like 7K, just sort of find your legs and all the rest, making sure, as you said, don't miss aid stations, get on board nutrition. If it's hot, make sure you're keeping your core temperature down, and then build into it for the second loop, and then at the last loop, it always sucks, but you just have to find the mental strength to use your mantras, visualization, and just dig in. But then
Yeah,
you're also at that stage you've passed. For me, I go, okay, right, that's the last time I'm passing that cathedral. I just have to get there, and like, and
yeah.
the finish line, you'll hear the noise. You're gonna get very close to it, so that will actually spur you on. What other tips would you give for the run, for someone doing this
Yeah, I
course?
mean it's 3.5 loops, and of course you're counting down those loops. It's like, um, but it's a really fun course to run on because there's support all pretty much all the way around. That gray area is where the sort of the you're kind of running through the Elsinore town, and it's just you're running up these streets, and there's on either side of the streets there's people kind of out. You're running past restaurants, there's people eating and drinking, and everybody's shouting and cheering you on. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Um, uh, Great. It was a very, very, very enjoyable event, Elsinore.
Cool. No, absolutely. It does look like a nice track. In terms of getting it all done with your swim, your T1, your bike, T2, and your run, you've got 8.5 hours to do it. But you'll do it fast on that because you want to get into meet those Danish guys who are offering you beers on the way around. I think that's an incentive in itself. Okay, doke. This is the finish line. It does look epic. What were your finish line memories, Ian? Was the
Oh,
lasting memory?
brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, it was just there was a lot of people lining the red carpet, as you can see there on either side. Lots of shouting, lots of cheering. It was pretty lively finish line experience, and it was great, amazing. Everybody was of course, everybody's excited, coming across the finish line, but the support from people watching the competitors come across the finish line was amazing. It was great.
Yeah.
Great,
I
great
I
finish
think
line.
I think until you do a 7.3, people go with the price and said, look, it's much more expensive than local. Ironman do the razzmatazz. Like, yes, they're a big corporate, la la la, but they do the razzmatazz. And when they roll into town for the few days beforehand, there's buzz about the place. And we put on the finish line the stuff at the swim start with the heartbeat thing they do, and if it's Paul K that's doing, he's very good and gets the clap going. And then the finish line is
Yeah,
the icing on the cake, as in you sort of go, this is. And this is something I tell my first timers. This is what you need to visualize. It's going to hurt. And when you're going to really struggling, you go, wow, I've got another 2 laps to go. This is what you think of. Think about your family, think about your why, what all the training effort you've put into it, and just drive towards that line because it's bloody worth it in the end.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
mean, Ironman. Yes, of course, we all know they're not the cheapest event to enter, but they put on a hell of a show, and it's a triathlon experience like that you won't have experienced before if you've done one before and you're used to racing your kind of your local races. The Ironman put on a real show. It's great.
yeah, it's essentially the Walt Disney of endurance racing. If we want to put it in, that could be my new catchphrase. I like this. Um, okay, some other considerations. I think that we've mentioned about nutrition and hydration. Again, that's in a topic itself. There's a video below that goes through how to prepare for your race day nutrition. Um, was it Ian was saying about making sure you have lists and everything to pack and all the rest? I have a handy downloadable video how to pack your bike, how to and a checklist how you make sure you don't forget your Garmin charger, who there's always one that does that. Talk about tapering, that weird period of time where you just think you're getting sick and you're not. So the 2 weeks before your race, not at all. Last minute tips, make sure you make your accommodations right. Make sure you read the athlete guide when it comes out. You watch this video again and you give Ian and myself a thumbs up. You book your accommodation, all that sort of stuff. So these are some things that will set you up for success. The venue itself, Ian, when did you get out to Denmark? Did you go out a couple of days early or?
Traveled out on the Thursday. So flew into Copenhagen, picked up a rent a car. I think you've got another option of getting there's a train which travels you can get from Copenhagen to Elsinore. I chose to pick up a rent a car. It was about an hour and a quarter drive from Copenhagen. Um, Book your accommodation early. It's Elsinore is not the biggest town on the planet, so you got 2,500 people coming in with their support crew. So accommodation books up relatively quickly, but I think that's pretty similar story across any Ironman event. So yeah, book your accommodation early. Just plan your travel to the event. I chose to travel out on the Thursday because I wanted to try and do a bit of a bike ride on the Friday. Yeah, so
Yeah,
worked out pretty well.
fantastic. Yeah, and again, there's also things that you can do. As and I'm a big fan of getting there a few days before the event. One, if things go wrong, you've got times to like if your bike bag, if your bags get lost on the plane. If it's a day before, it's a disaster. If it's 2 days, 3 days, it'll normally turn up. And so I get, and also as I've mentioned, there's a buzz about the town. I love going there and seeing all that sort of stuff. To a certain extent, if you spend too much time, there's a couple of things that will get drained if you spend too long in the expo. One, your energy levels. When you look up at everyone, they look so much fitter and stronger than you. And two, your credit card. So get there, absorb the energy, and but don't get overwhelmed by it. So I agree with you getting out there early. The the other key things as well to notice that you will the day before the race you have to check in your bikes and your bag bike and your bags, the red bag and blue bag myself and Ian has spoken about. There's a certain time you have to do that. That's the only time you'll get your timing chips, so don't worry about that. Transition will open very early at 5:30, and then your actual swim start will start at 7:30. As Ian made reference to, there's a pre-swim in that area. What was your top tip about getting there? And were you there 5:30 yourself, Ian, or what time did you aim to get there for the transition?
I can guarantee you, I certainly wasn't there that early, but yeah, my hotel was relatively close. Oh, I I probably would have landed down there, at least an hour and a half before the swim start. Just give me myself time to check the bags, and check my bike, put my watch, put my Garmin on my bike, get my tires pumped up, right pressure. Yeah, so just give yourself enough time so you're not rushing and you're not getting stressed. You've got plenty of time to check those bags, make sure you've got stuff in the bags that you want. Check your bike, enough time to get your wetsuit on, and yeah.
Yeah. Again, as I was saying, like get there early, not too early. Again, take whatever sleep you can, work out. Like as I said, I leave the hotel at 6. It's a 15-minute walk. I get down there for quarter 6. If anything's gone wrong, I can fix that in an hour for sure. So yeah, and do not do the last minute thing as in sort of, oh, right, but the transition closes at 7:45. I just need to be there for half 7 because you know you'll turn up and someone will have knocked your bike and your derailleur's sort of misaligned. You're trying to find a mechanic. That can be an unbelievable stressful event if you've got 15 minutes to fix. It's a completely different event if you've got an hour to fix and there's no queue to the mechanics. So no, I agree with you altogether, mate. Listen, that is all we have. So on behalf, if you do have any further questions about 70.3 racing, training plans, etc., shoot me an email to info@smartenduranceSolutions.com. If you have any questions on the event itself, put them in the comments below, and myself and I'll bully Ian into asking me again. But all that's left now is to thank Ian very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I know you're just in from a run, and all the rest. So thank you very much. Any last minute words
Welcome.
for the gang?
No, just if you're going to Elsinore, it's you'll enjoy it. It's a great, well supported event. It's a nice little town. So yeah, I wish you well, and you'll definitely have a good experience there.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Ian.